Started. So good afternoon, everybody. I am Wade Barnes, the Managing Director of the Financial Services practice at Hartman Executive Advisors. For those of you who don't know us, real quick, Hartman is an independent IT and information security leadership and advisory firm. So we work with community banks to help improve their IT programs and their information security programs. So today, we're really happy you all could join. We've got Chad Quarles, who is a Chief Information Security Officer on our team, who's going to lead our discussion. So Chad, I'll pass it to you for your intro, and we can kick off.
Yeah, hi everybody. Nice to meet everyone virtually here. As Wade mentioned, I'm a senior CISO advisor here at Hartman. Background in IT and cybersecurity and building information security programs for banks and credit unions is sort of my specialty, and really try to emphasize treating cybersecurity risk and managing cybersecurity risk as not just a technical issue, but really what it is as a managing as a business risk, right? Just like no different than any other risk that we face as a financial institution. Cybersecurity is no different. So look forward to our discussion. So Wade, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen.
Yeah, go for it.
And jump in. Let me know if you guys can see that. All right. Is everything looking all right there, Wade?
Looks good.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is how to protect your organization from evolving generative AI threats. So for the agenda, we'll kick off with a high level definition of generative AI, so we all are on the same page with what we're talking about there, and then dive into what the meat of it, which is the potential risks that we need to manage as it relates to generative AI. So particularly, we'll talk about data privacy, bias and fairness with AI tools, regulatory concerns, regulatory risk, as well as operational, and then they'll close out with cybersecurity risk associated with AI tools. We'll share a few real-world examples that we've come across in the threat landscape, and then talk about what we can do to position our banks to deal with this emerging threat or risk associated with Gen AI. And then, of course, have a spot there for opening for questions and discussion along the way. And as we go through, guys, please feel free to ask questions and interject as we go along. So just to kick us off here, generative AI refers to AI systems. Like, there are lots of different AI tools, but Gen AI specifically are those that create new content based on training data. So that could be text, images, music, all sorts of things that resemble the training data, the information that it's trained on, but not a direct copy. Any questions there about what we're talking about when we're referring to Gen AI?
If you all have questions or comments throughout the presentation, don't be shy. We have a group that's large enough to field them as we go through it. So feel free to jump in, raise your hand, put something in the chat along the way. Chad, did you see the comment there? You're just a little hard to hear.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. I will see what I can do about that. I'm working in a hotel room today, so not in my usual office. So I'll do the best I can there. I'll lean in a little bit to the microphone. Okay, so getting into some of the potential risks that we face with Gen AI. While there's numerous benefits to community banks, there's also several risks that we need to manage. The first one I'll talk about is data privacy and security. So sensitive data, we got to make sure that your AI use cases may require access to customer PII or other non-public information. And a lot of AI tools leverage user prompts, which is how we interact with the AI tools to build and improve their models. So there's a risk there that we could expose unintentionally our customers' information to the AI model. So that prompt is how we interact with these tools. So we got to make sure that we don't enter sensitive information into the model when we're leveraging these AI tools. So before using any AI tool, it's important to review the privacy policy and the terms of service to understand how your data is used and how it's being handled. So the way we're seeing that today is, there are technical tools that we can use to help ensure that PII doesn't get entered into those prompts. So leveraging traditional tools like data loss prevention and other things to help filter and ensure that we don't unintentionally provide the AI tool with sensitive information. There's also concerns about bias and fairness. So there algorithmic bias. AI systems can unintentionally incorporate biases present in the training data, leading to unfair treatment of certain customer groups. So compliance, we have concerns there about anytime that we're using the AI tools to make decisions as part of our banking products. We've got to be very careful about bias and fairness and the discrimination risk. So algorithms might result in discriminatory practices in areas like loan approvals, credit scoring, and even customer service. There's regulatory and compliance challenges. So this is a brand new area, and the regulatory environment is still evolving and figuring out how they're going to address artificial intelligence. So community banks may face challenges in ensuring compliance with both existing and new regulations as they're developed. So that's kind of a risk of forging ahead with the use of AI in your business processes. Is while you may not be out of compliance or in with an existing regulation, something could come up down the road that addresses how you're using AI and could put you out of compliance. There's concerns about auditability and transparency with AI systems. It can be difficult to audit and understand how they're working. So important part of financial services is our ability to audit our processes and understand how we're doing things and how we're managing the risk. So with a little bit of the uncertainty in terms of how the artificial intelligence works can lead to some concerns with auditability. Operational risk, system failures can occur and result in them producing incorrect results due to bugs, data quality issues, and other unforeseen scenarios. And then you got to be concerned about developing a heavy dependence on technology. So over-reliance on AI could lead to operational issues if that technology fails or if there's a lack of human oversight. So if we got to worry about being too dependent on the AI tools to do the work for us and not have that human oversight and ability to recover those processes in the event that the technology is not available. Now, the next part I'll talk about is kind of how the threat actors are weaponizing artificial intelligence for phishing and social engineering. So in addition to the good guys out there using AI to help improve processes, improve efficiencies and outcomes, the threat actors are also using and leveraging AI to make their attacks more successful. So they're using AI tools to create more convincing content for social engineering, particularly phishing emails, SMS texts, and even voice calls. So AI tools today, are making it much harder for the employee to spot a social engineering attempt. Even some of those telltale signs that we've trained employees on how to spot a social engineering email or a phishing email are not as relevant today as the threat actors begin to leverage AI. So even threat actors who are not English isn't their native language, they're able, sometimes that makes it easier for us to spot the social engineering emails. But now with ChatGPT and other generative AI tools being used to generate the social engineering message, it's making it much harder for us to spot. They can even craft personalized content that mimics writing style and tone and behavior of other trusted individuals within our organization to really make it more difficult for us to spot. They're also leveraging generative AI to create deep fakes using audio and video manipulation so that they can create very realistic fake videos and images and audio recordings that impersonate individuals for the purpose of fraud. We see it in defamation and then also misinformation. So now we'll kind of go into some of the real world examples that we've seen with the cyber criminals weaponizing AI for phishing, deep fakes, voice cloning, as well as revenge and blackmail. So the first case that I'll review with you guys was earlier this year. A deep fake phishing scam cost a multinational company more than $25 million with one social engineering attack, where an employee was tricked by digital imitations of his colleagues on a Zoom call. So the employee initially was suspicious of a phishing email they received that was describing a confidential large transaction that was required by the CFO. And the phishing email alone was suspicious, and he didn't act on that. But they followed up that phishing email with a video conference invite where the victim joined the meeting and saw on the screen, similar to what we're doing right now, his CFO and other colleagues talking to them and describing the transaction, and ultimately that convinced him that this confidential transaction was legitimate, and he processed the $25 million payment. So how could they do something like this? What they're doing is they're using publicly available video footage of officers and executives in the organization. More and more we see through social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, other things where we're publishing videos and messages from our leadership teams, and they're using that to train the AI tools to create both fake images, but also can do recordings, videos as well as audio. So the victim in this case, when he joined the Zoom meeting, he was asked to introduce himself, and then did not interact directly with anyone else in the meeting. So that's kind of a red flag that we want to train our employees to look out for. But once he was on the call and introduced himself, the deep fake renderings of his colleagues provided the victim with instructions for processing the transaction, and then the call sort of ended abruptly. So what we can do here to to make sure we're more resilient against this type of attack is raise employee awareness to the potential of deepfake social engineering. So what I've found working with our clients and discussing this with organizations is that in a lot of cases people aren't even aware of this capability, and that they could use this deepfake technology to impersonate people at this level. So raising awareness that is something that we need to look out for, and then some kind of low tech, best practices as well, right? Ensuring that there are multiple approval requirements before money is transferred, particularly a large transaction like this. So, anytime where you have one person that can approve and transact this, makes it more likely that they could be socially engineered, where you're less likely to have multiple people fall for the same scam. And then standardization on approved communication channels for corporate video conferencing helps the organization and your employees spot anomalies. So if you typically always use Microsoft Teams as your default or your standard web or video conferencing tool within your organization, standardize on that and communicate that to your employees, so that if they do get a Zoom or any other tool, Google Meeting or whatever, that might make it just give them another red flag to sort of identify that may make them more suspicious, or that something could be wrong. Wade, anything else you would add as I'm going through this?
No, Chad, I think you're doing a good job covering it, but I think this is the point you're making here. The deep fakes are just incredibly concerning, what we're seeing. And I think phishing, organizationally, we struggle enough with phishing attempts, right? That have bad grammar, that are just unsophisticated. And to your earlier point, the fact that they're now incredibly sophisticated. And then now put on top of that, you're getting, video messages and like images of executives. It really raises the level of attention everybody in the organization needs to have, because it's becoming more and more sophisticated. And I think with technology, the time in which today they're still a little bit detectable, it's not completely perfect, but the speed at which this is happening, I suspect very soon it's going to become very hard to tell the difference between what's real and fake.
Yeah, I agree. And that, reminds me, right? Like this situation is, I wouldn't say is the norm yet. I'd say what's been totally normalized and being leveraged by the threat actors is the use of the AI tools to generate the content of the phishing email. But this is like the next level that we're seeing, and more targeted, sophisticated attacks. But as as we know, what's targeted and sophisticated today will become more common as time goes on. So that's where we expect to see these types of social engineering increase in frequency, as time goes on. And it highlights the importance of our user awareness programs, because the IT teams, the technical teams are likely doing a lot of great work to build technical controls in front of your email to detect known malicious messages. But inevitably something is going to make it through those technical controls and land in our employees' inbox. And we want to make sure that our employees are an effective layer of our information security program. And to do that, they've got to, we got to depend on them to be able to identify and report suspicious emails. And I like to emphasize that with all of our clients, is to make sure that if you see it and you recognize it as potentially anomalous or social engineering attack, that's great to delete it, not interact with it. But by reporting it to your IT teams, somebody else in your organization may have received that or a very similar message and not spotted it or not realized it. So if you report it, the technical teams can in background go and quarantine those messages for anybody else who may have received it, and make sure that nobody else has fallen victim for that same sort of attack.
I know we're talking a lot about the bank and the bank's employees, and here obviously you have the slide on customers, but that's exactly where I was headed, was just the fact that it's not just internally that this has to be concerned. It's also as the bank's dealing with their clients, and frankly just even informing their clients of the risks that happen within their own businesses. So I don't mean to steal your thunder, Chad. Keep
No, that's great. Yeah, that's the next sort of area that I wanted to focus on, is how fraudsters and threat actors are impersonating bank customers and employees, right? So the threat actors are leveraging these generative AI tools to impersonate our customers to carry out fraud. I know we have heard out there in the threat landscape of like robocalls being used to target our customers and prompt them to interact with the tooling that's recording their voice, and then that recording is being used to create voice messages, of things that our customers or employees have never said, right? So, and that can be used to target our frontline staff, who's so hardwired to provide excellent customer service, right? So if they're getting a phone call from a client that they recognize and they've worked with, and it's putting them in a really tough spot where they to be able to identify potential fraud, where in our industry we're so particularly susceptible or vulnerable to that, because we want to provide such excellent customer experiences. So yeah, and as I was saying, more and more audio and video is available publicly, particularly on social media. That becomes data that can be provided to the AI tools to train it on, so that then they can recreate voice samples from these potential victims. Those video voice and video samples can be combined with other PII that's available broadly on the dark web based on other data breaches and things. So having that voice, the voice footprint or fingerprint to use those voice samples combining that with account numbers, social security numbers, date of birth, and other information that you may use to authenticate a customer makes it very difficult. So what can we do, right? I always try to focus on like what can we do to help make us more resilient, have a better posture against these things. So raising employee and customer awareness to these tactics is going to be important. So you know, I would say, employees, we have a really good handle on generally for user awareness. We've got tried and true user awareness programs. We have the mechanisms, the processes, and tools in place to deliver training, even do testing and things like that. But make sure we're raising customer awareness as well. So whether that's their posts on social media that have a cyber awareness or fraud awareness subject, you can use social media, your website, newsletters. That's how I'm seeing a lot of our clients raise awareness to their customers. And even in some cases, I've seen them work to schedule kind of in-person meetings or seminars where like they welcome customers to come in and hear more about the latest fraud and cybersecurity risks that are developing. There are also some fraud detection tools that are working to develop and improve their capability to detect AI generated voice. These tools utilize AI themselves to identify voice biometrics and do forensic audio analysis to help them identify synthetic voices versus legitimate voice recordings or spoken voice. Some of these solutions or companies that are in that space are Pindrop, Nuance, Verint. Those are the three that I've come across here most recently. They're in use a lot for call centers and contact centers. So you're where you're receiving phone calls from your customers, your members. These tools are being used to identify that the customer is who they say they are and provide a more seamless authentication. So it's one of those a rare case where you get to improve both the customer experience and the security posture at the same time with these tools that are sort of passively listening, analyzing the voice on the other end of the call to help make sure that it is who you're expecting. And that's usually a better experience than having to ask out of wallet questions or things to authenticate your customers. So it's important now with the availability of these AI tools to generate voice that impersonates our customers. You got to make sure that these tools are doing their part to continue to enhance their capabilities to identify synthetic voice. So that's something that they're doing and developing to help combat this.
I think it's an important.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, Chad. I think it's an important point too, just as we think about how we field customers' calls into the organizations, right? Like whether we're accepting those calls into the branches and taking action, or whether we're funneling that all through a call center. Like again, I think in our community banking space, so often there's the desire to be really helpful and to help progress the customer's needs, but there's got to be some thought given to kind of formalizing channels for communication, because to your point, like call centers can have these tools in place, but oftentimes you don't have these tools in place across your entire telephone network. So just being really thoughtful about how to identify, like I know Pindrop and some of the tools that you mentioned here, to your point, they're listening and they're analyzing the voice, but they're also looking at things like where's the call coming from, like who's the line registered to. Like there's a lot of data that comes into the number which it's calling for. Is it coming from a voice over IP? Like it's doing a lot of analytics on the call itself to understand if that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Wade. Like they'll look at what carrier it's coming from. So like if typically the customer calls in from their Verizon wireless phone number, so going beyond just caller ID, because we know that the threat actors are easily impersonating or spoofing those caller ID numbers. It looks like it's coming from that cell phone number, but is it originating from the Verizon wireless network? Is it a voice over IP network? Is it looking at all these other technical elements to help score that and combining that with the voice fingerprinting as well and identifying. So it's using a lot of different data points to score that authentication and give the call center or the agent, the employee, a score or how confident they are that that person is who they think they are.
And I just think it's so important, again, like looking at organizational policies of like how like what types of activities will you take from a phone call and conduct, and again, being really thoughtful about making sure you're funneling those calls to an area that has the ability to detect some of these, because that's just gonna, the threat here just continues to increase. And again, everybody's so customer service focused and oriented that it's easy to make a mistake there.
Yeah, agreed. The next example that I'm going to use is something that came out in the media here locally recently, where a former athletic director is accused of, and I think now at this point they confirmed that they framed a principal using artificial intelligence. So what we had was a disgruntled employee who used AI to impersonate his boss, the principal. The employee created a fake voice recording that led the public to believe the victim had made racist and anti-Semitic remarks behind closed doors. Police say that the employee created the recording in retaliation after the principal initiated an investigation into improper comments that were made to coaches on the athletic director's staff. And that caused a lot of disruption in that organization, in this case in that school. So how did they do it? The disgruntled employee may have created the recording using deep learning algorithms that analyze and mimic someone's voice patterns with really great accuracy. By training on enough audio data, attackers can create synthetic voice recordings that sound like a specific individual, allowing them to create audio clips of them saying things that they never actually said. So what can we do here? Again, I think is making sure that we raise employee and executive awareness to this potential type of fraud. And then also, control access to these types of tools as well. Make sure that you have adequate logging and user internet access reviews capability to go back and see was, because that was very critical in identifying this as a fraud case, because they were able to go back and look and see that the athletic director in this case was at work at the office using AI tools during the day, and could demonstrate that they were using these types of tools. So I guess what my point is, I'm trying to say is making sure that we have the tools in place to support an investigation when it's necessary, and then also to restrict access as needed to these types of tools, and or any types of websites that may not be required for business use. And then lastly here, as we're getting towards the end of my presentation, I just wanted to sort of open it up to some discussion and hear have you guys or your organizations developed AI policies? So that's an important part of getting a handle and control on the use of artificial intelligence in your organization. Is the first step. Hey, we need to address it with a policy. So even before we can do any technical controls to enforce that policy, first thing we want to start with is identifying what our expectations are of our employees and how they can or cannot safely use artificial intelligence. So I wanted to see if any of you guys have started to develop AI policies or incorporated into existing policies, maybe like acceptable use policies or something similar.
Feel free to raise hand, come off mute, chat, whatever is most convenient.
Okay. Short of that, other things that we're seeing organizations do is making sure to develop a governance framework for reviewing and approving AI tools. So a lot of organizations don't want to, say, hey, we're not going to use AI, it's too risky. They want to make sure that they're getting the benefits out of AI and leveraging it safely to improve their processes and performance. So what we're seeing and what we're helping clients do is establish governance committee where employees can submit use cases for artificial intelligence and the tools that they would like to use for those use cases, and they can be reviewed and assessed and in decision, right? Like, approved or not, but making sure that we keep a handle on it. We don't want it to quickly turn into the Wild West where people are going out and grabbing consumer / free AI tools and just in using them, putting the organization at risk. So if we give our employees a process or a framework for being able to submit these things and get them reviewed and approved, that helps with managing the risk and enabling the business to leverage this tool and any other types of tools to help improve performance. And if you guys are comfortable speaking up and sharing, I would love to hear additional context from you guys if you're seeing an increase in AI powered fraud, and how you guys may be working to combat this fraud. I think an important part of risk management is making sure we're sharing information and helping each other, because as we know, the threat actors are really good at communicating and sharing what's working for them and spreading information. So I want to make sure we're also doing our part to share information as the good guys.
I also think information sharing groups, right, like FSISec and others that are good, like really good ways to stay in touch. I mean, I think probably you all have peer groups that you talk to in other banks, and I mean, to your point, Chad, it's amazing like how well the bad actors communicate and collaborate, and we see it happen really quick. Like we have a client that took on a tremendous amount of credit card fraud, and it happened in a very short period of time, and it was simply, I'm positive it was multiple groups given the velocity which was coming in, and it's just really to have the information to be able to react on that quickly and then to be able to communicate that out. I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, I've seen online forums where the fraudsters are sharing information saying, I applied for a credit card at this institution. I used this information. Like I said, I had lived in a house for this long. I said my salary was this much. Like they share exactly the information that they put in and what the line of credit was that was extended to them, so that they share that information with others so that they can use similar information to gain unauthorized access to credit. So they're definitely communicating very effectively.
I think back to the AI policy too. If you don't have an AI policy in place, your organization, seriously consider that and consider with training, because I don't think a policy alone is fair. I think there's an education component that needs to happen for your team members, but it's innocent in some cases, right? I've worked with a client who their administrative assistant quite literally wanted to take transcripts of minutes and put them into ChatGPT to summarize meetings, and it's like, this is a executive or board level conversation. You have to be incredibly thoughtful about where that goes. If you put that into ChatGPT and then somebody's aware that happens and somebody says, hey, tell me what happened in this meeting, and that information comes back, that can be absolutely damaging to the organization. And that's a real life, like genuine somebody just trying to leverage these tools to do their job. So it's important that we're educating people on open source AI tools like ChatGPT versus tools that can live within inside your environment in a secure way, like Microsoft Copilot, the difference between them, and some of the ways in which they should use them. And by no means is our stance on this like don't use AI. I think our stance is actually quite contrary, which is this is a tool that's developing quickly and can absolutely make your teams very much more efficient, right? But I think you have to understanding of the tool, how to use it. To your point, I love seeing clients standing up these steering committees, if you will, to start testing, right? So like create a group within your organization. Marketing is always kind of a prime user of AI tools, administrative folks, but kind of look at some folks within your organization. If you haven't given access, like maybe gives access to this group, do a pilot study, understand how they were using it, kind of time saves, start to put an ROI behind it, and then certainly start thinking about other business processes that would be ripe for for automation, leveraging AI. There's a lot of benefit here, but the education component is so important because you can inadvertently expose sensitive organizational information, and that can be damaging.
Yeah, that's a great. It made me think of other real world cases where we've seen this, and similar to what you're talking about with the meeting minutes. There's a lot of AI tools being used to capture those meeting minutes and summarize meetings and things like that. And where we've seen that become something you want to be aware of that could be problematic is where you may have a sensitive meeting like that where you start out with a larger audience, and then at the end you say, all right, everybody, have a couple of people hang on or stay on after to discuss something confidential, particularly maybe in like board meetings or other executive team meetings where you dismiss a portion of the audience. Well, that recording and AI tool is still running and recording the minutes and summarizing the conversation. And then after the end of the meeting, it distributes those notes out to all of the attendees, right? So even those people that were not in attendance during the confidential portion of the conversation, but they're then the meeting minutes and the summary of the full session. So it's just something to definitely be aware of and be careful with as you're exploring and beginning to leverage those tools.
Great point. What questions do you have? We can certainly open it to the audience. We'd love to field more questions, or if there's any feedback or any information you'd like to share with the group, we'd love to field them. Not everybody wants though. Anything? Doesn't sound like it. Chad, anything that we didn't hit that you wanted to make sure we covered with the group today?
I think I've covered everything that I intended to. But yeah, there are any other questions or anything else you guys would like to hear about, please let us know.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate everybody joining today. No doubt this is something that's going to continue to evolve and impact, not just our organizations, but our clients. And, I think really understanding, how we can combat this, how we can collectively work together in peer groups, understand it and be prepared. And I think, that also goes to educating your clients too. There's a real need to make sure everybody's aware of the risks and how to best combat it. And while the folks will use AI or any technology for bad, there's a lot of good use cases out there too. And Chad, to your point, there's a lot of companies leveraging AI to combat the fraudulent AI. So lots happening in the space. Really appreciate you all dialing in today to learn a bit more. And if you all have any additional questions after we drop, feel free, please reach out to Chad or myself, and we'd love to help you out however we can.
Yeah, and then one last plug for your risk assessments, right? So if you all have information security risk assessments in your organizations, make sure you're checking to see how we incorporated AI risk into that risk assessment, and make sure you're documenting your mitigating controls and understand the risk that you're accepting there. I think that will help go a long way, making sure that we're considering that and evaluating that as the landscape changes, but then also positioning us well for responding to audits and examinations and things to demonstrate that we've not just implemented or deployed AI without considering risk. We have considered it. It's on our risk register. We're tracking it. I think that's an important message for everyone as well.
Good point. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate you joining. Hope you found this beneficial. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.